Another key component to a divorce is child support, and there's one that a lot of people have questions about. It is one that there's a formula that the courts look at, and it's been a more recently updated, and if you have an old child support order, it's something that you might want to look at because you can modify anything regarding children as long as there's been a material change in circumstance. Nowadays with the child support, it's based on what each party's gross income is. There's a question about overtime or about part-time jobs and things of that nature, but it's the gross income, so it's before taxes are taken out, not after. And basically, it also looks at the custodial parent and the non-custodial parent. So both parents' incomes are factored in. They also factor in what the cost of health insurance is, out of pocket, what the cost of dental insurance, what the cost of any other insurance is, what any child care costs are, usually like daycare and things of that nature, and who's paying all of these. Then they look at how many children there are in the marriage, if there are any prior support orders for other children from other relationships, and they come out with a figure. There are three types of ways that those figures can come out. One of them is if one party has sole physical custody and the quote non-custodial parent, or the parent that the child's not living with, sees the child less than a third of the time. And that comes out with one figure. A second figure comes out is if both parents have joint physical custody and share equally in terms of having the children live with them. And that doesn't mean that it's going to be zero child support. Again, it's based on these numbers, particularly the parties' incomes. And the third one is, and it's a newer one, is if one parent has sole physical custody, but the other parent has the child more than a third, but less than 50%. And that is usually a lot less than the typical less than a third in terms of what the child support would be paid. So factoring in what your parenting plan can be fairly significant. The courts are generally supposed to follow the child support guidelines and are supposed to make a ruling or a written reason in terms of why they're not following it if it's past a certain percentage point. There are a lot of other factors that can get looked at in terms of looking at who's paying the extracurricular activities for the children, or camps, summer camps, things of that nature, who claims the tax dependency exemption, a lot of other things that can be factored in, but there is one of the more straightforward areas in a divorce, which is typically the child support guidelines. It can be a little bit trickier if somebody has a cash business or might not be reporting income or has left a job. The courts can also impute or assume income for that party. So it is an easy thing to run the guidelines and to talk about the specific circumstances. Another issue in divorce is alimony or spousal support. There are a bunch of factors that the courts look at, very similar to division of the marital assets with alimony. It's also factored into, somewhat intertwines with the child support if there are minor children or unemancipated children in the marriage as well. There is an Alimony Reform Act, and alimony can be modified, particularly if it occurred before the Alimony Reform Act took place. And it's part of what's looking at is, does one party have the ability to pay alimony, and does the other party have the ability to, does have the need to receive alimony in order to have a similar lifestyle that they had during the marriage. There are a bunch of factors that are looked at, and there's some more cut and dry aspects of it than there used to be in terms of the length of the marriage, which is a fairly significant one, and when the divorce occurs, the age of the parties, things of that nature. But there are formulas that are looked at, or guidelines that are looked at with the Alimony Reform Act, which is not as cut and dry as a child support, but again are factored in when you're talking about child support and division of marital assets, also factor into the alimony aspect.